guys. In this video lecture we will discussing about the metabolism of triacylglycerol. Now this triacylglycerol, it is actually the most abundant lipid found in our body. Actually in our body 85 to 90% of the lipid that are found in the form of triacylglycerol. So first of all, here we will introduce the structure of the triacylglycerol. So first of all, triacylglycerol, it is actually the main backbone part. The triacylglycerol, that is actually the glycerol. Now this is the overall structure of the glycerol. So what the glycerol is? So actually this glycerol, it is actually a 3-carbon compound, as these are the 3 carbons. Now any organic compound which possess the hydroxyl group, so such type of the organic compound, it is considered as alcohol. Now this glycerol, it is by nature, it is actually as an alcohol. Now this alcohol, it will possess, this glycerol possess 3 hydroxyl groups. So this is first, second, and this one is the third hydroxyl group. So it is called as trihydroxy alcohol. So trihydroxy alcohol is the other name used for the glycerol. Now when this glycerol, these 3 carbon, when we attach 3 fatty acid with these 3 carbons, now it will convert into the triacylglycerol. So this is actually the first carbon. Through ester 1 fatty acid, it will attach with this carbon. Now this is the second carbon, it contain a second fatty acid, while this is the third carbon of the glycerol, it contain a third fatty acid. Now this is actually as an acyl group. Now this triacylglycerol, why it is called as triacylglycerol? So this is actually by nature, it is an glycerol. So this glycerol, it have a 3 acyl groups. So this is the first, second, and third. So that's why this triglycerol, it is called as triacylglycerol, because it possesses 3 acyl group. Now these 3 fatty acids that are actually attached with the triacylglycerol. So the 3 fatty acids that is attached with the glycerol. So these 3 fatty acids that are not same. So the first carbon of the glycerol, it have a fatty acid that is actually a saturated fatty acid, while the second carbon, it possesses unsaturated fatty acid. Now look at, see here, now look at the third fatty acid. Now this third fatty acid, it have both type of the fatty acid. It may contain saturated fatty acid or it may contain unsaturated fatty acid. Now our main topic, that is about the metabolism of triacylglycerol. As we know that the metabolism, it includes anabolism as well as the catabolism. Now this topic we will discuss into 2 parts. The first one, that is the anabolism of triacylglycerol. It means the synthesis, how the synthesis of triacylglycerol occurs. And the next part, how this triacylglycerol, when this is breakdown, what are the product formed from the breakdown of the triacylglycerol. Now the first one, that is how the synthesis of triacylglycerol occurs. Now the triacylglycerol formation, it will occur from the glycerol 3-phosphate. Now there are 2 mechanisms for the synthesis of glycerol 3-phosphates. The first mechanism, that is occur in the livers. So right in the livers, the glycerol, it will convert it into the glycerol 3-phosphate. When this glycerol, it will convert it into the glycerol 3-phosphate, this conversion, it will occur with the help of enzyme that is called as glycerol kinase. Now this glycerol kinase, it will break this ATP and will release the phosphate. Now the phosphate which is released from the backbone of the ATP, now this phosphate, it will attach with the third carbon of the glycerol. So finally it will convert it into the glycerol 3-phosphate. Now this glycerol kinase, it will absent in the adipose tissue. Now, what is the other pathway, or how in the adipose tissues, how the glycerol 3 phosphate it is formed? Now, the second mechanism that is occur in adipose tissues as well as in the liver. So this is from the glucose. So the synthesis of glycerol 3 phosphate in the adipose tissue and the livers, it will occur from the glucose. When the oxidation of this glucose occurs, so this oxidation of the glucose, it is called as glycolysis. Now when this one of the intermediate of the glycolysis, that is dihydroxyacetone phosphates, so one of the intermediate and the glycolysis. Now this dihydroxyacetone phosphate, it will convert it into the glycerol 3 phosphates. So when this intermediate of the glycolysis that is formed from the glucose, now this dihydroxyacetone phosphate, when it will act by the glycerol 3 phosphates dehydrogenase enzyme, so this dihydroxyacetone phosphate, it will convert it into the glycerol 3 phosphate. So here mainly the addition of the hydrogen occur to the dihydroxyacetone phosphate and will convert it into the glycerol 3 phosphate. Now from where this hydrogen come? So this hydrogen actually donated by the reduced coenzyme, that is NADH plus H. Now this hydrogen H will release by the glycerol 3 phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme. Now this hydrogen it will again by the dihydroxyacetone phosphate. At the result, this dihydroxyacetone phosphate, it will convert it into the glycerol 3 phosphate. Now when this dihydroxyacetone phosphate, it will act by the enzyme dihydroxyacetone phosphate acyl transferase enzyme. Now this dihydroxyacetone phosphate, it will convert it into the 1-acyl dihydroxyacetone phosphate. So finally this enzyme, it will remove the acyl group from the acyl coenzyme A and will convert the dihydroxyacetone phosphate into the 1-acyl dihydroxyacetone phosphate. Now what happened to this glycerol that is mainly formed from the glycerol and from the oxidation and from the dihydroxyacetone phosphate? Now look it, see here, this glycerol 3 phosphate, it will convert it into the lysophosphatidic acids. So actually what happened to this glycerol 3 phosphate? Actually right in the first carbon of the glycerol 3 phosphate, 1-acyl group it is attached. So here the enzyme that are responsible for this conversion of glycerol 3 phosphate into the lysophosphatic acids. When this acyl transferase enzyme, it will transfer the acyl group from this acyl coenzyme A into the glycerol. So this acyl group, it will attach right in the first carbon of the glycerol 3 phosphate. At the result, this acyl glycerol 3 phosphate, it will convert it into the lysophosphatic acids. So this acyl coenzyme A, it is actually formed from the fatty acids. So this is about the acyl coenzyme A, that is actually the product of fatty acids. Now what happened to this lysophosphatic acids? So again another acyl group, it is transferred to the second carbon of the lysophosphatic acids. So the enzyme acyl transferase enzyme H will act again on the another coenzyme A that is produced from the fatty acids. So it will remove this acyl group. So this acyl group, after the removal, it will attach this acyl group to the lysophosphatic acid. The result, we will get the phosphatic acids. So here one coenzyme A, it is released. Now what happened? So look at, see here, when this 1-acyl DHFE, it will form by the action of the DHFE acyl transferase. So again here one hydrogen, it is added to 1-acyl dihydroxyacetone phosphate. At the result, again this product, it will convert it into the lysophosphatic acids. So the enzyme that is 1-acyl DHFE reductase, it will actually remove the hydrogen atom from the reduced coenzyme A. So finally this release hydrogen it will gain by the 1-acyl DHFE. At the result it will form the lysophosphatidic acids. So mainly from the glucose and the glycerol, finally the lysophosphatidic acid it is formed. Now what happened to this phosphatic acid? So again one of the phosphate group that is attached right in the third carbon of the glycerol. So here in the phosphatic acid the third carbon possesses the phosphate. Now this phosphate it will be removed in this step. So here the enzyme phosphatase enzyme it is act on this phosphatic acids, so it will remove the phosphate from the third carbon of the phosphatic acid. As the result, this phosphatic acid it is converted into the diacylglycerols. So again this is the triglycerol, it is actually possess the three acyl group. So again here the third acyl group it is added. So acyl transferase enzyme again act on this acyl coenzyme A and will release the acyl group. So this acyl group it is attached with the diacylglycerol. At the result, the diacylglycerol it is converted into the triacylglycerol. So this is the overall process how the synthesis of the triacylglycerol occurs. So mainly two important substances that are responsible for the synthesis of the triacylglycerol, that is actually the glycerol, and the second one that is the glucose. So from these two substances the overall synthesis of the triglycerol occurs. Now the next part of the video that is about the catabolism or the degradation of the triacylglycerol. So what are the products formed from the catabolism or the degradation of triacylglycerol? So look at see here, this is actually the overall structure of the triacylglycerol. Now what happened to this triacylglycerols? So overall when the complete degradation of the triacylglycerol occurs, so it will result two products. The first one that is glycerol, while the second one that is fatty acid. Now this overall process in which the complete degradation of the triacylglycerol occurred to the glycerol and fatty acid, this process it is called as lipolysis. Now this process occurs with the help of water molecules. So here the three water molecules are added. So one water molecule as it contains two hydrogen and one oxygen. So one of the hydrogen it will attach to this oxygen. Now it will form the hydroxyl group of the glycerol, while the OH group of this water molecule it will attach to this acyl group, and the result it will form fatty acids. So the second water molecule it will add here and will break this ester bond. So as same for the third carbon. So here the third fatty acid it is released. So finally we will get the three fatty acid and one glycerol molecules. So actually this is not so simple that we will discuss here. So actually this process it is a complex process and occur with the help of specific type of the enzyme. Actually the hormone sensitive triacylglycerol lipase enzyme. So this enzyme it will act on the triacylglycerol and will remove one fatty acid from the triacylglycerol, either from the first carbon, either from the third carbon. So it the result of the action of the hormone sensitive triacylglycerol lipase enzyme, this triacylglycerol it will convert it into the diacylglycerols. So specific type of the lipase enzyme that will act on this diacylglycerol molecules and will convert it and will remove this two fatty acid from the diacylglycerol. So finally the overall product are these glycerol and three fatty acid. Now what happened to these glycerol and fatty acids? Now look at see here this glycerol. As we know that the storage of the triacylglycerol it will occur in the adipose tissues. So when the degradation of the triacylglycerol occurs, so this glycerol it is actually released in the adipose tissues, but the enzyme that will act on this glycerol, that is glycerol kinase enzyme that is absent in the adipose tissue. Now this glycerol, it is actually transported to the livers, where the glycerol kinase enzyme, it will act on this glycerols. So it the result of the action of the glycerol kinase enzymes, as we have discussed, and the synthesis of triacylglycerols. So finally it will form the glycerol 3 phosphate. Now this glycerol 3 phosphate, it will used and the synthesis of the triacylglycerol, or it may used in the synthesis of the phosphorylated lipids. So this is overall the fate of the glycerol. Now what happened to the fatty acids? As these fatty acids that are formed in the adipose tissue after the degradation of the triacylglycerol, so these fatty acids that are bonded with the albumin proteins, so it will form a lipoprotein. So this lipoprotein, it can easily transport it through the circulation to various tissues, where these fatty acids that are used for the energy purpose. Now how this fatty acid, it will produce energy? Actually, the oxidation of these fatty acid occur at the result, it will produce energy. So this energy, it is used in the various activity of the bodies. So this is overall the metabolism of triacylglycerol, how the triacylglycerol that are synthesized in our body, and how these triacylglycerol that are degraded into these products. So this is overall about the triacylglycerol. Thank you so much.